Right?
Yes.
Jason. A few more weeks, I'll
The
get
right first
Jason.
letter.
Yeah.
That's still.
Started it. So I did start the recording, and it is 5:30, and I'm gonna go ahead and start, and if anybody else comes, we will welcome them. So I hope you enjoyed the classes while I was away. I watched the videos, and I was really pleased myself. Laura nailed it, didn't she?
Yes.
She's listening.
Yes.
We really appreciate it.
I'm reading one of the books that was of the three that Stephen Batchelor wrote. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would not have been able to grasp it as quickly had we not had Laura's
Right.
overview. It was so succinct, broad, and yet specific. Oh,
Yeah.
she did it.
Way to go, Laura.
I think she has a knack. And
She
we're gonna
does.
ask her to teach more often.
She teaches because she understands the beginner's mind, understands what we're struggling with.
That's very important. And Mike said things about Zen that I had not known before, especially he mentioned that it was a practice for every man when it first started in China, not the elites, that there were elite religions going on, and this one was more for the workers, which I had never really understood. And centered on meditation and the idea of don't know mind, which I've heard, and of course, but it's a very cool idea, fresh, neutral, and unbiased state of mind that they cultivate. So, and then Laura talked about, my favorite thing about Laura's talk was kind of how she started with her own skepticism as a child about religion, but ended up talking about EBS and how even though we have very religious Buddhists here, including me, I'm like totally into it, the place is welcoming and everybody's comfortable with whatever they need, you know, finding their own way. There's no feeling of
Exclusion.
right, exclusion or right or wrong or better or whatever. And I think when she said that and I was reflecting on that quality of EBS, that so many people are fleeing from religions that do that. And so I have a feeling that is one of the things that most attracts people to this place, that atmosphere of like, come as you are, get what you need, no one's gonna judge you one way or another. That's rare, you know, in this world, so make me kind of go, yeah, I like EBS too. So, was there anything else about what they did in those talks that you want to talk about? Hi, guys.
Ah.
No. Okay, well then I'm going to jump into it. So, tonight we're going to start looking at the third school of Buddhism, which is Tantra or Vajrayana. And as I talk about this, I want to emphasize two things. One is that this is my personal understanding. I'm not a certified Vajrayana teacher, and like Anam or like Dr. Lai or like Anna, I was trained to teach Mahayana and Hinayana. So this is my understanding, not an official teaching. So I consider that we're just looking at things here, and I'm just sharing with you my own experience of things, okay? And we're also not actively engaging in any kind of practice, we're just talking about it. So. And then also remember Laura's comments that nobody's pushing any particular Buddhism on anybody, even though I love Tantra, it is like my heart and soul. Some people are triggered by it, and that's fine with me. I have no agenda in terms of it. You know, I really firmly believe that you find what you need, and we're all wise at that level to find what we need, and everybody needs different things. And so, but this is kind of the most, I would say, woo-woo Buddhism, and people do avoid it because it's like, it looks like it has saints and gods and things that are can trigger, people that fled from that kind of situation in their past. So I don't expect you to adopt anything or accept anything. So we're reading only 6 pages in the book, and Doug didn't mention them in the email, but you can read them for next week because we're going to do the same stuff, 252 to 258 in my book. And so the book says that Vajrayana was presented in scriptures called Tantras, which are comparable to the sutras that Doug has been talking about and that we talked about in the Mahayana part, which are transcriptions of the Buddhist teachings, hopefully faithfully transcribed. And since Tantra, though, appeared later, after his passing, the written text showed up later, there is some controversy about whether there really is words or not. And so in Theravada, they don't accept Tantra as the words of the Buddha. They think people made it up later. And in Mahayana, in Zen, they do accept it as the words of the Buddha, but they practice it differently in their own way. So, yeah.
Can I stop you right there? Because I've been thinking about this. The original Theravada, I understand, and then the Mahayana came later.
Yeah.
But was it that movement was not a direct, how do you say, first person to the Buddha?
Right.
It was later, after he had died. I mean, he left taught a lot.
Yes. I mean, I'm working on that too, I'm sorry to say. But the Theravada belief is that only what had been done before he passed is true. The Mahayana people say, he said that stuff, but you couldn't hear it.
Okay, yes, so that's my impression.
It went right over their heads.
It's an
It was like,
interpretation.
this is not for you. And so people's ears closed, literally, and he did. And that's like the Heart Sutra we talked about the Heart Sutra. And so that was definitely spoken by him. And all the Mahayana sutras are attributed to the Buddha.
Actually, okay,
So that's just how it is. It's just like that.
But we have the stuff that says, thus I have heard, or this I have heard.
Right. And that's the Buddha. And those are Mahayana.
That's Mahayana too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess I missed the chronology. Okay, never mind then.
No, I mean, it did come later. You're right about that. They're written sutras.
But it's because someone was sitting there and heard it, and is now right. I consider like first person.
Yes,
You know.
it is still first person.
Still, Mahayana is still first person.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And now so is Tantra. I'm telling you that Tantra also is first person, and I'm going to talk about how that happened.
Okay.
To me, the thus I have heard is a little bit vague, I think, in terms, it sounds like it, I heard it from somebody who was there.
Right.
As opposed to I heard it happening
Firsthand. Yes.
So in that point of view, it's second or third hand, which we don't really have a problem with say, Jesus or Buddha, in fact. We don't know how many hands it really passed through by the time the original sutras were written down. So, but I think the point is that it's faithful to the path to awakening rather than necessarily a literal faithfulness that.
Well, I want to add to
because
that.
it's been proven
right.
as a method of waking up.
Yeah, because it works for people, so it's legitimate in that way. That is the point. He says, make sure it works for you, and then believe it. But the other thing I think we're glossing over is the power of a non-written culture where things were transmitted orally all the time. It was the way things happened. People memorized speeches and passed them on. And so that was just as legitimate to people at the time as, we wait till it's written down. And then, of course, all kinds of things happen when you start writing it down. And the person who writes it down has to make decisions about it, you mean this or that. So it's not necessarily more legitimate because it's written down, right? So all of that is just like part of the complexity of this whole scene. So let me say that even though the Tantra came later, Vajrayana people like me are assumed to have studied Hinayana and Mahayana in previous lives. So there's a presumption that, like I said, you find the teaching that suits you. And I've had teachers sitting there like Anam was, and who say, if you're in this room, you have studied Buddhism for many lifetimes before this one, because that's why you're in this room. And I don't know what to make of that. I assume it's true. I don't know. It just is something to think about. But their point is that everyone must absorb the foundational practices to do anything else. And so when Mick and I wound up as tantric practitioners just because we followed our friends into a center that was Tibetan. Our friends were all American, but the teacher was Tibetan. And we had no idea what we were doing there. We had no idea what we were doing. And but the people that we knew who were doing that stuff were reasonable, sane, humorous, friendly, generous people. And we wanted to be like them. We wanted to be part of that community. So we submitted, we joined, we jumped in. And the first thing they made us do, or that was offered to us, were studies of Theravada, Mahayana. In fact, we did that for 7 years before we were introduced to formally studying Vajrayana. And there was a structure that supported us, which I really, we've tried a little bit to replicate here at EBS, but it was just, there were people who were trained to be guides, and they helped you with your struggles with whatever you were doing, especially your practice. But then there were also 2 people trained to teach. And so they gave classes and stuff and talked. And we were both trained in those things too. And so everybody had what we called a meditation instructor, who was your point of contact. And you could say, oh, I'm thinking too much, or whatever, and they could help you over those things. So we were also intensely meditating. We were supposed to do an hour a day of silent meditation every day. And weekends, programs that would be over 2 days, about 10 hours of sitting meditation. And we did 5 of those weekends in our first year. And I know, looking back on it, it's like, wow.
With children?
Yes, we had children, and we had to send them off to friends' houses and stuff like that. And but I'll tell you that my motivation was that I wanted to be a good mother. And I knew this was making me a better mother. And so it was, the whole family was involved in it. When we went off after 7 years and we got permission to go to the residential Vajrayana program, they went with us. Leo was 4 and Kate was 11. And they had daycare for them, and we did this thing all day. And it wasn't the same practice that you would have had, experience you would have had without children. Because we were always having to get up and leave early to get the kids out and, take care of them and tend to them and stuff. But, so today, Leo calls himself a Buddhist, and Katie thinks we're in a cult. So didn't stick with her, it did stick with him, sort of. Anyway. So let's see. Part of this, some of the modern tantric schools let people go straight to Vajrayana without that meticulous review of Hinayana and Mahayana. And I have friends that have walked into some place and they get transmission and boom, they're off and running. I'll talk about transmission in a minute. But others, like someone was just telling me about this study they're doing with our teacher's brother. His name is Mingyur Rinpoche. He has a whole program where it's very similar to what we went through, where they train people and then they train people to teach and so forth. So we took a bodhisattva vow in a ceremony with the teacher. I don't know if Dinanamtuk didn't give the bodhisattva.
Yeah.
He did, yeah. So you've seen that, or I can tell you that you just say, I want to be a Buddhist, and he takes a little clip of your hair. It's what people did in front of the Buddha when they just started following him. And then later we took a bodhisattva vow, again in front of the teacher. In both of those cases we were given new names in Tibetan, and just symbolic names. And when teachers come here to EBS, we usually ask them to do the refuge ceremony. So it's different in the different Tantric communities. They're not all the same. But what is true in all of them is that there's always a master or a teacher. And that teacher always has the authority of a specific lineage behind them, like a family tree. You can trace back the teacher's origins. They will tell you their origins if you ask. And you can see where each step of each person behind them. And this is true in Zen centers too. They recite their lineage usually in a Zen practice, going back to whoever. So the master, this person, transmits to you directly something that they inherited, he or she inherited in an unbroken lineage. That is the core idea of Tantra. That it's whispered. They call it the whispered tradition. It comes from person to person, like that. And I recently came upon the perfect analogy for this lineage transmission idea when I met a master French baker. Meg and I were in a French language class, and he was there, and he told us that he had some yeast, some bread starter that he got in Paris 50 years ago. He's been keeping it alive since then, and he gives it to people, and they can use it. So one of the people in this class, he had given them some of this bread starter, and they were reporting to him how delicious the bread came out. And people do sourdough bread that way too, right? Families pass down the starter. And so I think of transmission as a kind of starter batch that is given to me, and then it's my job to make the bread with it, however I can, and also to share it if I feel inspired to share it with other people. So it is given, transmission is given in a ritual ceremony called an empowerment, or in Sanskrit is called an abhisheka. And my abhisheka occurred in a 3-month residential retreat that I just mentioned. It was in Colorado in 1994. And I honestly don't remember all that much about the ceremony itself, except that we each took a turn sitting in front of the teacher who touched our head with ritual objects. And before that, we'd been in a room and people passed around and poured liquid in our hands and gave us other ritual things to hold, like flowers and stuff, and poured liquid on our heads, and not like a shower, but a little drop. Anyway, it was very stirring, very emotional, and I felt like something special was happening. And Chogyam Trungpa in another place, it wasn't in this reading, but he said that this empowerment ceremony came directly from that Buddha, Shakyamuni, the original Buddha, and is described in the Tantric teachings that I was just talking about. And here's how he tells that story, so I'm quoting him now. He says, the ceremony of Abhisheka is actually based on the example of Buddha. It is said that Shakyamuni Buddha was once invited by King Indrabhuti to teach the Dharma. The king said to him, quote, I would like to relate with my sense perceptions and my emotions. Could you give me some teachings so that I can work with them? The Buddha said, oh, you want to hear Tantra? And the king said, yes, I guess so. Then the Buddha replied, in that case, let me excuse my arhats and my Hinayana and Mahayana disciples from the room. So he asked his disciples to leave. Then the Buddha appeared to the king in royal robes and taught the first Tantra. That was the first presentation of Tantra. So the Buddha is seen in different ways at different levels of practice. Unlike, this is still Chogyam Trungpa talking, unlike Hinayana and Mahayana, where the Buddha is a simple monk in plain clothing, at the Vajrayana level, the Buddha is dressed as a king. He has a crown, he has a scepter in his hands, he has a royal gaze, and he behaves like a king. End of quote. Okay. So this rich, kingly appearance of the Buddha represents significant differences in perspective too, as you can imagine. Chogyam Trungpa explained it like this. He said, one of the reasons that Tantra is so rich is because it actually relates with human experience as a physical situation rather than a lofty idea. In the Hinayana, we're struggling to maintain awareness. In the Mahayana, we're trying to be kind to our neighbors. I'm still quoting. Vajrayana Buddhism respects those disciplines, but it also transcends them. Vajrayana sees the power, profundity, and vastness of the absolute truth as fully and completely manifest in the phenomenal world. In other words, and this is me now, the world is seen as sacred. Everything about it, even the bad stuff, is seen as sacred and workable and a path to realization. So, as in the story of the king, the students in Tantra want to work directly with their sense perceptions and emotions to embrace instead of transcending ordinary human experiences. There is something called Vajra nature. It was mentioned in the reading, and it is understood to be the basic nature of everything. It cannot be destroyed. It runs continually in the background of everything. So our sense perceptions and emotions are connected to this basic nature of the world. We're fully integrated with the world, inseparable parts of it. And we read the world, we relate with it through our sense perceptions and emotions. They are how we communicate with the world around us. But again, Trungpa emphasizes that this view depends on meditative disciplines of the first two yamas. I mean, you can see how you might get a little wigged out if you're like seeing everything as sacred. So even if I kick my cat, that's the action of a king, Buddha king. It's cool. So, like becoming a master baker, we have to have the early training. How to prepare dough and how hot to make the oven and all those basic details. So, I know nobody read the chapter because we didn't tell you to, but anyway, the chapter does say that Tantric meditation practices are about seeing the world as sacred, seeing everything that arises inside us as containing some expression of wisdom. We are also sacred. In a sense, we practice seeing ourselves as a Buddha and seeing the world through the eyes of the Buddha. Using the deities, who are projections of the sacred nature, and the ritual movements, sounds, and images that evoke their energy. So that's what we're doing. We're chanting, we're ringing bells, we're beating drums, we're evoking the energy of this Buddha and of this Vajra nature. So here's Tara. She's a statue. I'm going to pick her up so that she shows on the camera. The whole little scene might break down. But I'll make her close. What I want to say about her is that her form, just like the Buddha statue on the shrine here, her form and features are meant to represent qualities that she has, her qualities. Like he's got those long earlobes, he's in that posture of equipoise, his eyes are open because he sees clearly, and so forth. Well, okay, she is first of all female, which is cool. She's supposed to be young, like a young, fresh person with all, like I think of maybe a young adult, or yeah. Her superpower is fear. She helps people with their fear. And so her front leg is extended because she's ready to jump into action at a moment's notice. She's not sitting still like that guy. She's poised to act. And in her right hand is making a gesture of supreme generosity. She's saying, anything you want to bring me whatever you want. And her left hand, she's holding this flower here, which is an utpala, it's called. It's a blue lotus flower. And so, like all lotuses, they symbolize purity, but they also symbolize purity based on, like Thich Nhat Hanh says, no mud, no flower, right? They symbolize purity based on experience of impurity, right? And so anyway, the Upala flower is her skillfulness represented. She's wearing a crown that is has symbols of the 5 Buddha families. Don't worry about that. There are 5 Buddha families. She's got jewels and silk ornaments, again, like the Buddha had robes and stuff. And this one is colored gold. It's not literally gold, but like he is, it's meant to be sparkling, to attract your interest. And Dr. Lai put this necklace on her. I don't know, he got it somewhere when he was traveling. And I would never have put a necklace on her, but she's got one because he put it there. And I don't know what else to say about her. She has long hair. You can look at the back of her head. Her hair is tied up in a knot, and then it comes down her shoulders. So I can't tell you that much more. She also has the long ears. That's a sign of a Buddha. And all of this imagery goes back to India. It's not Tibetan, it's Indian. And but the Tibetans kind of took it up and made a lot out of it. Made a whole world out of it. And that's where it's preserved. So let's see what else I want to say about her. She, her youth represents how much energy she has. I think of her as an avatar of everything that I like about female energy. And she's a very appropriate figure to invoke, I think, in this time, which is pretty anti-female, I think. And so invoking her energy myself, I do a Tara practice every day. That's what I do. I picture her, I consider, what she represents, and try to feel it in the world around me. So I'm going to pause and see what you think and what you want to know.
So how is it that fear is her superpower? She's able to face it, she's able to...
When you're afraid, you call on her, but yeah, she overcomes fear. That's her. So
Okay.
fearlessness and compassion, unconditional, immediate compassion. So my friends who are also doing Tara practice, there's a whole bunch of us. It's a sangha. One woman was saying how she was she has cancer. She was getting a scan, and she was just racked with fear, and she just thought of Tara, and her whole being relaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Because she had a relationship with, like I'm doing, working
Yeah.
with it as an idea. But there's a sense of overcoming, just overcoming fear. Awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're just right there on that edge of like something's bequeathing you these relief from fear and so forth, that this is like coming from an agent out there.
Yeah.
But there's lots of yidams. She's a yidam who reflects this stuff, but there's lots of
A
yidams.
yidam is a deity figure that represents particular qualities.
They're called deities.
But that's not the word you said, yidam?
Yidam. Yeah,
It's a Sanskrit word.
Y-I-D-A-M.
Okay.
And
New words.
You like new words? Y-I-D-A-M.
Y-I-D-A-M.
Okay, thank you, I just hadn't heard that, okay.
And I think everybody, I think you say things like a relationship, with these things. And to me, just on a personal note, it's like it's up to us to know how to work with what has been given. And you ask somebody, how do you visualize, or how do you do that? And he says, well, do it how you can. And it's a fairly open-ended thing, but I take very seriously, though, that we've talked about Buddha nature, I think.
Yes, we have,
That's
all the way
class.
through, right?
And I just think of us as like psychological animals. We project. We've been through that. We project form, self, and all that stuff. But that's imagination and concept. We're very practiced at that. So when we imagine looking for some strength from our fear, something to help us out, to give us a little bit, or to see things as sacred, and so forth, what we're actually doing is kind of mobilizing our inherent ability to deal with fear and our inherent ability to feel compassion, rather than looking at this sort of, most people actually do have a hard time visualizing, like as if they're actually seeing everything. They come up with their own ways. I certainly have my own particular way, but it's more about having it rise in you. And in that way, it's like, and it works in a lot of ways, in a strange way.
It's like a kid whistling in the dark, like, I'll be all right, in a way. But you come to like, well, maybe I do have this bravery in me and this wisdom in me, and I'm gonna practice it, and then before you know it, it's like you do have it. It's just like you didn't know if you could sing or not until you tried.
And you rehearse that enough that even just thinking about those feminine strength courage and compassion rising is a shortcut to like having a charge of that from yourself. So you can call that frame it all kinds of ways, but it's to me, on a very human level, it's a very practical way of having those things arise in you. Is it voodoo? Is it magic? Yeah, okay. It just kind of works, and it's not really asking you to, and at the end of it all, you dissolve it into nothing. I don't know, you didn't get to that
I didn't
point.
get to that part, but that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, because the practice that we do literally is not to make myself brave, okay? I want to correct that.
Yeah.
It is to train myself to not believe my own projections. So we all walk around all the time, making up the world we see with our own eyes. We make it up. Oh, that's a bad person. Oh, I like that person. Oh, I want more of that. I don't like that. And we think that's how reality is. And these practices where you picture a different reality, you make it as real, as intense as you can, and then you dissolve it. Gives you a practice of like not buying in so thoroughly to your own projections. And it's just another practice, like keeping your mind present. It's like you keep your mind on this practice of visualizing, and then you let it go, wrap it all up at the end, and get up, go about your business, and something lingers of the qualities you've been invoking, but also the main point is that everything is not your projection. Projections are less important.
Is it maybe that you can tune into your own kind of internal compass and vibrational?
Yeah.
Because that goes into the woo-woo, but I do kind of believe in that and that's kind of the chanting, those things
Yes.
kind of allow you to drop the narrative, drop the projections and realize your Buddha nature.
Yes, and the mantras have sound. They are sound that they talk a lot about mantras. Mantras actually resonate in your body. They're not just like
I've done
songs.
some,
Yeah. They are meant to move the energy in your body in certain ways. And so they give you mantras with these practices, and you're supposed to do a certain number, maybe 100,000 or 1 million of a mantra. That's why we have mama beads to count.
It sounds to me like it's a tool.
Yes.
You know, it's a tool so that you can have all these different concepts, you can think about them or whatever, but it's a tool that you get practiced with so that you can, when you call on that tool, when you think about it, then you've got all this training, right, that comes up, which is very different than when you first brought it up. I thought it was like calling on Jesus to save me, and I was like,
Yeah.
But, you know, that
Choke.
right, like this magical thing, because I'm privileged enough to believe it, is going to,
Right.
and so, but it's not that. It doesn't sound like that at all. As we've talked about it, it's a practice of a tool, a way to visualize it. And so when you think of, is it Tara?
Tara.
When you think of Tara, then you've trained yourself to be able to face your fear and be courageous. And that's what it sounds more like to me. Am I on the right track?
No, you're
with that?
absolutely right, Ann. Absolutely.
I came from such an agnostic background. It was a hurdle, but it turns out, yeah, it's a tool, but don't make it I gotta make it as real as I can make it, it becomes more potent. And to me, I'm always reflecting on other religions where they actually kind of do the same thing, except that they really are imagining that there's a character out there that's in the clouds and bequeathing things to you.
Yeah.
And they really believe that. The more they can believe in that, the charismatics really prove it. Really, I mean, it's like they get into like that. because they believe in their projections. We know our projections are imaginary, but for some reason,
Okay.
the more you can lean into it, the more you can use your inherent Buddha nature to unravel your confusion about your projections.
So
It's
she's not,
very strange. It's not at all clear
yeah,
in a granular way, but in an experiential way, it's really quite interesting.
Very effective, actually.
Yeah.
Working with some.
and there's science behind it, that it's effective. I mean,
Yeah.
that's that thing
There's some
that
kind of,
helps me
Yeah,
be able to try to go there, right? It's because the science is, no, you do this and it really does.
yeah,
You can see the effects.
yeah.
So she's not a god or a saint. She's a representation of the things you said.
Yes,
Um,
but that doesn't prevent you from feeling love towards
Right.
Tara, towards the idea of Tara, towards the symbol of Tara, and being really glad that you've heard about it and all this kind of stuff. But like Mick said, you're not asking her to intervene and get you out of your marriage or something like that, right? Whatever it is. You're just like, you want, the ultimate goal is to see things the way they really are, rather than the way you're imagining them to be. And she's someone who can help. This image is something that can help you do that.
I've started doing the mantra, I guess it is. They're online. There's a Tara practice. I just started doing it. So,
Om Tare, Tu Tare, Tu
Yeah.
Samaya.
yeah, that one.
That's her mantra, yeah.
Yeah. So I've just been doing that the last couple of weeks. So this is
That's
very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a male counterpart?
Well, she's supposed to be born from a tear from Avalokiteshvara,
Oh,
the deity of compassion, ultimate compassion. So he's pictured usually with 1,000 arms because of his unlimited capacity to help people. And yeah, she's the female version. It's so complicated. I mean, not complicated, rich, I would say. They have this whole, the Tibetans have this whole cosmology and, you can just read and consider infinite levels of things. But I'm trying to give you the kind of top layer. And, like the 5 Buddha families. She's from the Green family, the family of activity, it's called. That's the main wisdom of the wisdom of enlightened activity. And which is why she's got her foot out, ready to go. And, but like I say, there's like, oh my God, and by the way, there are 21 different Taras, actually, maybe more. I don't know, 21 that we still.
The standard ones are 21.
The
I think I've
standards-
heard there's like,
And so if you want, there's like, Dr. Lai once talked to us, taught us about a Tara who heals nature. So,
and there's new
after-
ones.
what?
I've heard there's new ones
ones.
too.
Yeah, but again, if you think of them kind of like avatars, right? Or something like that. And that might be sacrilegious to somebody else who's a Vajrayana person who, this is just me and how I work with it. And I'm a very practical person. And I also came from the Episcopal Church. And so I'm drawn to the brocades and the incense and all of that, but I'm at the God is gonna save you.
I like to think that it's so complex just because humans
We are, That's right.
You know, I mean, there's every variation of, you know, I mean, so, yeah, complex and nuanced, and so that's why it's a, yes, you know, but again, I kind of like, wow, you know, it's like the Greeks had a whole zoo up in the
Right.
sky and intermingling and so forth, and it's like not unusual to really populate the world with spirit ideas, you know, of the human experience. So I feel like we're in pretty good company.
Yeah, and the
But we are non-theistic.
it's totally non-theistic, and Chogyam Trungpa has so much emphasized it's non-theistic. Nobody's going to save you.
That's the bad
You can
news.
try as hard as you like. It's up to you.
This is making a lot more sense than when I looked into this on my own before. And I think too, was it, you said your daughter who thinks you're in a cult?
Yeah.
To just, and I realize it's facetious probably,
Yes.
but to take that humor a little further, it strikes me as that humans have a social predisposition for joining cults, and this is just a cult that I control. It's my cult that I control for the benefit, for my benefit.
For your benefit,
For my
yeah.
benefit,
And you
and
don't have
everyone
followers.
else's.
Yeah.
And there's no other followers, it's just, and that makes sense to me.
Nobody exchanges hands.
That's right, that's
Right.
right. But
No.
as a means of, this is the behavior, the attitudes, the conditions, the principles that I want, I support, I believe in, and this
Right.
is a convenient
I want to
representation
Yes.
of that. And that doesn't seem spooky or weird to me at all. That makes good sense.
Yeah, but you can see why it confuses people on
Yeah.
the outside.
When I looked at it before, I just thought it was weird.
Yeah, well, and the other thing I would say about it is that you don't forget love, because I love my teacher. I don't know him. I mean, he knows him. He goes, "Oh, you, hello, how are you?" But if you said, "What's her name?" I don't know. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's this because love inspires me to go further, to keep trying to be brave, and I think that, like when I was listening to Laura's talk about secular Buddhism, I was thinking, well, they've taken love out.
I know what you're saying. I disagree, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, we don't have to be afraid of following someone who, you learned to talk because you loved your family and you wanted to communicate with them, right? And your children learned to talk, well, maybe you didn't love your family, I'm just presuming, but that is what we do.
Right.
We learn from each other, we follow role models, we
Right.
attach ourselves to things and go with it, and that can be dangerous and stuff. I've learned all this stuff about not attaching. Mike did a great job talking about it. Doug has done a great job talking about it. But it's also, at the end of the day, you come back around to what about this? What about attaching to pure expressions of goodness, of wisdom and goodness, and following them.
The other aspect that's been really revealing, as you talked about it to me, well, something I know about myself is that I'm generally distrusting of people, including myself.
Yeah,
And that I think that is another layer of why this is weird to me.
yeah,
Is that if we're talking about concepts or ideas or ideals, I can focus on those, I can be comfortable with those, I can feel them, and it doesn't trigger this distrust trust of people. Whereas here, that inherent distrust is getting in the way of it's getting in the way of me making it to the love that's there. Whereas without that, it's easier for me to find the love. And I think the upshot is that I need to get past that. I can accept that that's something I need to work on, but I think I didn't understand that that's one of the disconnects until this discussion.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Weird and interesting.
I mean, when I first, before the current teacher, I went to a retreat with a teacher who taught Tara practice. And you pictured her and you said her mantra, and then she radiated light. And you were supposed to see this light coming into your body and healing you, okay? She was a white Tara, this is a green Tara. And I worked with that, and what I saw was the cells of my body locked against this light coming in. Like, no way am I letting that in me. And it was so hard and so like, I was shocked. Like, what the hell is this, you know?
Right.
What a good thing to learn about myself, though. You know, that like, whatever people were gonna give me, I was not gonna take it except on my terms and blah, 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 because of fear or whatever, protection, whatever. And I really had to literally picture the cells softening, cells, okay, letting a little tiny sliver of the light get through. That's how I meditated. It was like, here comes the light, oh no, well, I'll take this much, you know. Until now, it's just like, yeah, fine, lay it on me.
The laughing is understanding and support.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I love Tantra.
There's a historian, Mircea Eliade, that talks about the capacity of an elder to create ritual sacred space.
The capacity of what?
An elder.
An elder, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, well, a ritual elder, somebody that has
A
the
master.
capacity
Yeah,
to set the boundaries of sacred space, and within that sacred space, transformation can occur and has, I mean,
right.
in cultures throughout history. So it's powerful if we can manage to conjure that energy and participate in it.
And let it in.
Accept it.
And accept it,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
that's right. No? Any thoughts?
I was trying to track, so it seems like, if I understood correctly, part of the point of consciously sort of creating this image or archetype to project onto is also the point of consciously dissolving
Yes.
or disillusioning yourself with that projection and seeing our tendency to do that
Not
projection.
disillusioning it, but
Okay.
it's the act of creating it and then letting it go.
Okay.
Watching it turn into thin air.
Gotcha.
That, so that you like I think about, my son talked about, we just visited him, video games as a child, where he died over and over again in every game. Taught him about letting go of things, like about, you know, failure, and because he would try, you know, to beat the monster in the game, and they would beat him most of the time. Then he would learn to beat them. And so it's kind of like that. It's like you create this thing, you work really hard at getting it just right, and then you let it just dissolve. It's dissolving, it's not abandoning it, it's just dissolving it. And when you do that a lot, you start to realize how you do that in everyday life. You know, you're going to see your friends and you create this whole like, oh, it's gonna be like this, and I'm gonna do this, and they're gonna say that, and then you create this whole image of what's gonna happen. And then it's not like that, but you know, either you let go of what you created, let it dissolve, or you struggle with the situation that actually occurs because it's not what you pictured.
So that's the daily practice, that's living it.
That's right.
And that's maybe comes from these tools. It gives you that kind of awareness, that spaciousness in those daily practices, your daily life, because that's what this is all about, is being able to practice and use your own life as your practice ground.
I kind of wonder, might not be related, but I think about magicians, or like people who perform magic on stage kind of thing, and illusionists. And that part of the great thing about that stuff is like you're watching it and everything they're doing is telling you something that you fundamentally understand as an illusion. You really don't think that there's a, they're pulling coins out of your ear, but they do it so well. And that's where there's a kind of suspension, right? And then it's released. You don't have a problem with going, I don't know how, or you go, well, I know how. There's magicians who just love watching other people do really great tricks. They know how the trick's done, but it's just like, it works, and rather than it's being like, I believe, and then I drop it, and now, of course, I just imagined that was a concept. It's sort of like that, it's a simultaneous quality of like understanding what you're doing is a projection, and yet it still has mojo to it, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what you think.
Once my version of it.
Yeah.
It's just like it's there and it's not there, and yet it still has potency.
You know that there's a trick going on
Yeah.
here, but that doesn't change the fact of the joy and the magic and the power.
That's right, and the actual human feelings that it arises, and at the same time, and you can probably find all kinds of psychological ways to explain it and this and that, but we are talking about a path to dissolving your sense of rigid concept of everything, and so.
It's the same thing that we've been talking about all along.
Yeah.
Just at a different level, in a different style. But it's the same idea of not believing so much that your thoughts are real.
Right.
And finding out that your thoughts have more space in them and they're not permanent and all that we've been talking about. This is another way to do it. So we're at the end of the time. So we'll do this talk next week. If you read the chapter, he talks about the Tantric practitioner, I think is what it's called. And and I will post this video, but also put my notes on the Google Drive if you want to hear. The quotes that I read of him are not in the reading, so
Yes.
I'm sure you can.
It tells me that this discussion today will make reading this so much more
Yes. That's
Yeah.
accessible. I'm going to say accessible.
Right.
It will
Instead of
give me a
shutting
framework like Laura did last week.
Yeah.
It just really helps put this into perspective.
Good, that's what we're trying to do.
That's,
So
I think that's exactly what I haven't read this yet, but next week I will report whether that is true, but I have a sense that's the case.
And again, no one's trying to convert anybody to anything.
No, it's just a matter of opening up to new concepts. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah,
I just want to hear different concepts, different perspectives, and let me bubble.
Yeah.
This is a great class. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
it
you so
is.
much. I like it.
Cheryl.
Yeah. Thank you so
We're gonna
much.
do, like I said, next week, one more Tantra class, and then the week after that, on our schedule that we've been working with, there's this thing called like, what's next? And that'll be like a discussion, and Doug will be back, and we can
Will there be a test? Is that the test?
No test. Or maybe only if you want one.
Quick, what are the 6 paramitas?
That would be Doug. Doug would do that to us.
I have trouble with all the rest.
Yeah, really? Well, we all do, we all do. And you can work with it, right?
Yeah.
And you're here to work
Yeah.
with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it such a beautiful attitude to think of everything is sacred. And it seems like I've heard a Dharma talk by
Yeah.
on that subject.
Yeah.
And it's some, to if you could get, that really conjured and get in a resonance with that, that would be transformative.
Yeah. It changes your world. It
Yeah,
does, it really does.
We'll get that done next week.
Well,
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
little points here, little points there.
I'm gonna stop the recording and, great to see your face, and I hope you enjoyed the retreat. And, sorry I missed you.
See you next time.
December 9th.